Hello students, welcome to the e-learning platform presented by Mechanical Engineering Department of Dr. Bapuji Saroke Institute of Engineering and Technology, Kolhapur. From today's session, we are going to start with unit number 2, that is automobile transmission system. This chapter consists of 14 marks and the main end parts of an automobile vehicle, that is clutch, gearbox, propeller shaft, differential, axle, will all be studied in this chapter. This chapter is of 14 marks and is much important. The learning objectives for today's session are: number 1, requirements, function and selection of clutch. Starting with clutch, we will be moving on, or we will be seeing requirements, function and selection of clutch in today's session, and working principle of an friction clutch. The working principle on which the friction clutch work or the clutch works will be studied in today's session. Starting with first, automobile transmission system. Introduction. In order to propel a vehicle, a particular type of speed and power changing device is required to transfer the power developed by the engine to the driving wheel due to constantly changing requirement demanded on engine and its inherent limitation. That is, म्हणजेच एखादी व्हेकल आपल्याला मूव्ह करायची असेल तर आपल्याला प्रत्येक वेळी वेगवेगळा पॉवर लागते, प्रत्येक वेळा वेगवेगळा टॉर्क लागतो. तो टॉर्क मॅच करण्यासाठी आपल्याला काही पॉवर मॅच करण्यासाठी काही डिव्हाइसेस यूज करावे लागतात, ज्याच्यामुळे इंजिनच्या परफॉर्मन्सवर अफेक्ट होणार नाही. त्या डिव्हाइसेस मधलाच हा एक डिव्हाइस आहे, तो म्हणजे क्लच. These devices, which are used to transfer power from engine to the rear wheel, are known as transmission. Transmission basically defined as assembly of parts including the speed changing gear, propeller shaft, by which power is transmitted from an engine to a axle. The all components like clutch, gearbox, propeller shaft, differential and axle are included in a transmission system. The very first component of a transmission system after engine, flywheel is the clutch. So basically, what do you mean by clutch, or definition of clutch? Clutch is a device used in transmission system of a vehicle to transmit rotary motion of one shaft when desired to the second shaft, of which axes are coincident with that of first. Thus, the clutch is always located between the engine and the transmission system. The clutch is when engaged, when the clutch is pressed, or when we press the clutch pedal, the power or torque transmits from the engine to the driving wheels through the transmission system and the vehicle moves. And when the clutch is disengaged, the power is not transmitted to the driving wheel and the vehicle stops while engine is still running. म्हणजेच आपण ज्यावेळी क्लच प्रेस करतो त्यावेळी क्लच काय करतोय, क्लच पेडल प्रेस करतोय त्यावेळी काय करतोय, क्लच डिसएंगेज करतोय. म्हणजे इंजिनची पॉवर जी डेव्हलप होते ती आपण ड्रायव्हिंग व्हील्सला देत नाही. आणि ज्यावेळी आपण क्लच हळूहळू सोडतोय त्यावेळी आपण काय करतोय, हळूहळू क्लच इंजिन आणि गिअरबॉक्सला कनेक्ट करायचा प्रयत्न करतोय आणि पॉवर ट्रान्समिशनचा प्रयत्न करतोय. त्यामुळं सडन क्लच ज्यावेळी आपण सोडतो त्यावेळी इंजिन फुल पॉवर ट्रान्समिट करतो रिअर एक्सेलला आणि आपल्या व्हेकलला जर्क बसतो आणि आपली व्हेकल बंद पडते. सो एंगेजिंग अँड डिसएंगेजिंग आर व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट प्रोसेस टू बी नोन. एंगेज करणे म्हणजे क्लच एंगेज होतो म्हणजे द क्लच पेडल इज नॉट प्रेस्ड, आणि डिसएंगेज होतं म्हणजे आपण क्लच पेडल काय करतोय, प्रेस करतोय. दिस इज कॉल्ड एंगेजिंग अँड डिसएंगेजिंग ऑफ क्लच. So let us see what are the requirements of the clutch. The main requirements of clutch should be as follows. First, it should be able to transmit maximum torque of the engine, that is, the power developed or the torque developed by the engine should be transmitted maximally by the clutch. It should engage gradually and avoid sudden jerk or shocks. म्हणजे स्मूथ एंगेजमेंट झालं पाहिजे. It should be able to dissipate large amount of heat generated during clutch operation. Friction is the main principle of operation of clutch, so heat generated will be more. So the clutch should be able to dissipate the heat. It should be dynamically balanced for high speed engine. It should have mechanism for damp vibration and reduce noise during power transmission. Its size should be small and occupies less space. It should be easy for operating so that the operator can operate it by the small effort, and it should be lighter in weight. These all are the requirements of an clutch. Let us study the working principle of a clutch. Basically, we know that a clutch is a mechanism used to transmit rotating motion of one shaft to another when desired and the axis of the both shaft are in coincident. That is, when the shaft of the axis of the shaft coincident, and the power is to be transmitted, or the rotating motion of one shaft is to be transmitted to another shaft, a clutch is used. Basically, a clutch works on a principle of friction. It connects the engine shaft and the gearbox shaft. The below two figures are there. Figure A shows two distinct rotating shafts with A and B discs. S1 shaft rotating with A disc and B a shaft that is idle with shaft S2. The S1 shaft is rotating, say, at a n RPM. The transmission of a power can be affected by friction between two or more rotating concentric surfaces called as friction plate. The friction between the friction plate can press firmly against one another by means of axial force provided by spring and the pressure plate. When engaged, the clutch tends to rotate as a single unit. The rotating speed of concentric surface or other shaft is depend upon the friction force, which is proportional to the axial force applied by the spring. That is, when you apply a certain amount of axial force on a shaft S1, and it will come in contact with the shaft S2 due to the friction and plate present between the two moving rotating parts A and B. The power will be transmitted from the A to B. The transmission of power depends upon the axial force applied at the S1 shaft end. If the force is applied fully, then the shaft speed will be same. That is, S1 speed will be equal to S2. The torque or power transmitted by the clutch is given by T is equal to W into R, where the W into R are where the it depends upon where the power transmitted depends upon the coefficient of friction of material and radius of clutch, where R is nothing but the radius of clutch and W is coefficient of friction, or it is also called as mu. That is, T is equal to mu into R. It depends upon the coefficient of friction of material and radius of clutch. After understanding the working principle, let us study the functions of clutch. The functions of clutch are very simple. First is to permit engagement or disengagement of a gear when vehicle is stationary and engine is running. That is, for the smooth engagement and disengagement of gear, clutch is provided. Second, to transmit engine power to the road wheel smoothly without shock to transmission system while setting the vehicle in motion. That is, to provide the power from engine to the rear wheels without any shocks. And third, to permit the engaging of the gear when the vehicle is in motion without damping the gear wheel. That is, without hammering or without crushing of an gear inside a gear box. The functions are very simple: to permit engage and disengagement of gear when vehicle is stationary, to permit engaging and disengaging of gear when the vehicle is in motion without damping, and to transmit engine power or from engine power from engine to road or wheels smoothly without shock. These are the functions of an clutch. Next is design consideration of an friction clutch. That is the points to be remembered while designing in of an friction clutch, or these points are considered while designing of an friction clutch. First, the suitable material forming the contact surfaces should be selected. The material used for friction plate should be selected properly. Second, the moving parts of clutch should have low weight in order to minimize the inertia load, especially in high-speed service. Third, the clutch should not require any external force to maintain in the frictional contact. The clutch should have provision for facilitating the repair. The clutch should have provision for carrying away heat generated at contact surfaces, and the provision for taking up wear of contact surfaces must be provided. So these are the design consideration of an friction clutch. The last point of a clutch is selection of a friction clutch or selection of an clutch. There are number of factors taken into consideration for deciding type of clutch. Some of them are listed below. The first one and important one is a torque, that is required normal force. The torque required normal force, type of friction surface, and number of surfaces. Torque is the most important parameter, as the clutch should be able to transmit more than 100% of the torque, so that engine can run smoothly and more power can be transmitted to the transmission system. Second, rotational speed. It should be light, compact, and internally balanced, so the rotational speed can be fully utilized. Third, available space. The space, diameter, and the height of the clutch, it should be as per the available space the clutch should be selected. And fourth, frequency of operation, that is type of journey, as small travel, engaging mechanism, large cooling area, low inertia. These all are the factors, some of the factors taken into consideration for deciding type of clutch. So this is it for today's session. In today's session, we have started our second chapter, automobile transmission system, in which we have started our first part of a transmission system, that is clutch, which we have seen the definition of clutch, requirements of clutch, working principle of clutch, function of clutch, consideration of clutch, and selection of clutch. From the next sessions, we will be starting with classification of clutch. Thank you.